I'm heading out for a little phone photography with these Sandmarc phone lenses and this iPhone case for attaching the lenses. There they are out of the box in their nice little pouches. God, I've had writer's block lately, photographer's block, musician's block, all the blocks. Inside the zippered bags are further bags. This is a clip, in case you prefer to mount the lens via clip as opposed to a phone case. I'm team phone case personally, but I have used clip-on lenses before. They work pretty well. When my mom was alive, I bought her a set of clip-on lenses, very much like this, for her iPad. But my parents moved, then I moved, then she died, and I have no idea what happened to those lenses. Just one of many things that got left behind in the mad scramble of 2 years ago. This is a 2x telephoto, or field of view equivalent to 58mm on full frame. The phone, of course, has multiple lenses natively, but they're not all, I suppose, created equal. The built-in telephoto camera is 12 megapixels, while the main camera is 48. And this is a 10x telephoto, 240mm field of view. And these are my very first images ever captured with these lenses, and I just had not yet clocked the fact that this 10x lens has a focus ring that you have to adjust. Still though, it worked out. I like this image the way it is, kind of dreamy. Anyway, phone sensors are tiny and phone lenses are tiny. Tiny sensors, tiny optics. That's why phone photos aren't the greatest in terms of artistic quality, generally. But the limitations of a tiny sensor can be mitigated to some degree with larger, better optics, with superior light gathering abilities. And so, I guess that's what I'm exploring here. Here's that 10x lens again. And yes, I should be using a tripod with this lens, and I will. But this becomes my favorite lens of the bunch. It isn't currently. I mean, I'm skipping way ahead telling you that. But my feelings for it evolved a little bit each time I used it. That said, one little gripe. See how the phone is kind of popping out of the case at the top left? This is certainly partially my fault. I screwed the lens in probably too far. And so it's pressing against the phone, pushing the whole thing forward. But it's a heavy lens compared to the other two. Kind of feels like you have to screw it in that far in order to secure it. At this point, it was my least favorite of the three. I was already enjoying the 2x telephoto, the wide lens, because they're good lenses in a traditional sense. It's easy to recognize that they elevate your phone photography. I feel it is, anyway. It's a matter of opinion. But I didn't yet appreciate that the 10x telephoto is a really interesting lens, but in a different way. It's an unusual paintbrush. And Sandmarc sent me these 3 lenses and this phone case for free. The email asking if I'd be interested in trying them came at exactly the right time. Because I've been floundering. Oh, I have a giant list of ideas for videos. Ideas are not really the problem. It's just a lack of ability to execute. More specifically, it's just this intense, at best, indifference that I'm constantly fighting here lately. Struggling to find the passion. Break the sense of routine that I feel stuck in. Well, in that context, this sounded like a welcome change. And that it might turn out to be a lot of fun, and so I jumped on it. I'm really glad I did, because after that, everything started falling into place. And yes, it's fun. It's ridiculously fun. I've shot on a lot of great cameras in my time. I'm not much into phone photography. But this definitely elevates the experience and the results. And it really puts things into perspective, too. I mean, traditional cameras are better. I'll grant you that. Basically universally better. Or at least a good DSLR or mirrorless will have some very clear strengths. Advantages over a phone. But a phone has some advantages too. I mean, phone photography, I think of for lack of better words. Very flat images, very sterile and devoid of personality. Kind of shiny and over-polished at the same time, in a weird way. But you zoom in at all and you're greeted with the unkind reality behind the shiny surface. You get either a noisy mess or a noise-corrected mushy mess. That's the software fighting and overcorrecting for the shortcomings of the sensor. Anyway, not implying that that stuff goes away when you use these lenses, but they do add a bit of personality. Maybe they can only do so much, because the phone itself is the bottleneck, but they do give you something that feels like it has a bit more artistic merit to it. Something optical. That is something more interesting achieved optically. This turned out to be a really special morning of shooting. For no particular reason. It's not like anything happened out of the ordinary. It's just a lovely, lovely morning. Also, I'm searching for this rock cabin that I've seen from a distance a million times, but have no idea how to get there. Granted, I could just look it up. That's not really the way I do things. This is the manual focus ring on the telephoto lens. I don't remember at which point specifically I discovered it, but eventually I did, thankfully. Every time I put this lens back on, I had another revelation with it. In addition to getting this insane telephoto reach out of your phone and at 48 megapixels, doesn't this kind of have a vintage lens kind of quality about it? No? Am I crazy? Potentially it might look better still on a tripod, and if on a tripod, maybe I could zoom in, take my time to check focus and all that. It definitely took me a little time to warm up to this 10x lens, but at this point I was really starting to appreciate it. The kind of imperfection and character that it gives you, it's so interesting. It's like a cross between a vintage lens and a pinhole lens. At earlier stages in my life, I guess I just wanted lenses to look perfect and sharp. But now I'm completely the polar opposite. I love this kind of stuff. I did make a video about DIY pinhole photography like a year and a half ago. No, not that long ago. A year ago? Not even that long ago. I'm not sure. But I've continued shooting on that pinhole lens, waiting for enough time to go by to make another video about it. And this 10x lens kind of has a similar vibe, but with a lot more fidelity. When you're using this lens, kind of feels like you're inventing photography. But here, I ended up getting so super smitten with this one specific lens, I am failing to communicate the solid performance of the other two. Solid, yes. No artistic degradation. Yet they add a little subtle bit of personality that the tiny onboard lenses are lacking to make photography on your phone kind of fun. Fun because the results are better, but also fun because all the logistics of swapping out lenses physically make this kind of a cool manual experience. For my mom, who was in her younger days an avid photographer but never really got on board with computers, she did prefer the convenience of digital cameras once they came along, but I was never really able to set her up with a good way to download and process her own images. We tried, she and I, a bunch of times. She just had an aversion to most tech-related things. But eventually she had a tablet and a smartphone, and she used them a lot, especially the tablet. So it just made sense then to cut out everything in between and get her a set of lenses that she could use directly on her iPad. My wife is not tech-averse at all. She works for a big tech company, in fact. But still, she just will not take the time to download photos or video, either off her phone or off of a camera. Wirelessly, wired, doesn't matter. She loves, for example, my DJI Pocket 3, in theory, but I can tell it annoys her that the video she shoots is not instantly where it needs to be. And so she always reverts to the phone because the image or the video is just already there on her primary device for consuming photos and video and sharing them. This is kind of crazy to think about. There was a moment. Yes, in general, I'm not much of a phone photographer, but there was a moment in between cameras and between my former life as a busy working photographer and my current relationship with photography. A non-busy, kind of working photographer, a little, slash hobbyist. Somewhere between 2017 and 2019, where I decided I was going to fully get on board with phone photography and ditch cameras completely, similar to my wife, my mom. It seems weird now because I love photography in a traditional sense so much, and cameras and just the whole craft and lifestyle and all the minutiae of it. Using it as a catalyst to get my ass out the door and into nature, but I didn't love it at the time, quite the opposite. I had never experienced photography as a hobby, only as a job. Yeah, my initial years were pretty fun, but still, even to the extent I went out and shot stuff just for me in those early days, I was still focused on getting good in order to earn money with my camera. But anyway, blah blah blah. I purchased whatever I perceived to be the best camera phone at the time. Spent about 2 weeks taking phone photos only, and was utterly disappointed with the results, with the experience. But if I'd have had these lenses at that time, who knows? Maybe that would have been enough for me. Maybe I'd have never gotten back into photography in the way I have. Maybe I would have been satisfied. I'm feeling pretty satisfied today. I, too, have experience with lens attachments. My first camera was an Olympus C750. That's not technically true. I owned a camera, a 110 film camera, when I was a kid. But over, 5 years, I probably only shot 7 or 8 rolls of film. I was not a heavy user of that camera. Later, I inherited a Nikon 35mm film SLR from my grandpa. I do not remember which one. I just didn't spend enough time with it. That is a whole separate story. But Olympus C750 was the first camera I chose, that I owned and loved, and got to know very, very well. My awesome parents bought it for me. I chose it. They bought it. But my mom shot Olympus. I thought so highly of her and her photography and her abilities as an artist that if my mom used Olympus, I never even considered another brand. I wanted to use what she used. But here's my point. It was the camera plus some lens attachments that they bought me. The main lens was not removable on this particular camera, so the lens attachment screwed on over the main lens, just like with this phone and these Sandmarc lenses. I own this camera today, not the same one I owned back then. I found it on eBay last year. But not the lens attachments. I still hope to find those again in the future. And I am using a third-party camera app on my iPhone. The native camera app has this annoying habit of perceiving these external lenses as blocking the native lens. Thus it just switches to a different native lens without my approval. It's honestly so goddamn annoying. But this ProCamera app that I've been using for going on 6 years now solved the problem. Anytime the native camera app starts pulling some shenanigans, this is the app I use. I also tried shooting via the Lightroom app, and that worked also. But I did find the Lightroom app to be kind of annoying, so I used my old friend ProCamera. I'm just out shooting whatever I want, however I want, Should I be devising tests? Should I be doing comparisons? Should I be trying to determine if these lenses increase subject-background separation? Probably, but I'm not. So rewind back to a couple of days ago. I was struggling to make anything or to get started on a video. Then I logged onto these phone lenses as my subject. Okay, cool. I was reminded of the similar set I bought for my mom and my lens attachments that my parents bought me. So the whole thing took on a significance because of those factors. Also, I knew what to expect from lens attachments. Even high-end teleconverters. The more telephoto you go, the more degraded the image will be. But, again, not necessarily in a bad way. If you find beauty in grain, blur, light leaks, lens flare, any kind of imperfection, if you've ever used film simulations, then, similar to me, you're kind of into the idea of introducing imperfections into your photography. And it's always more satisfying if you can do it optically. Found my cabin, by the way. I've been noticing this cabin for years from miles away, but never knew how to get here. Maybe you're wondering, I certainly was. Yes, you can put the 10x telephoto lens on top of your phone's telephoto lens. Just looks further degraded. Anyway, I've got my topic. Good. Next thing I know, a couple hours spent at my desk with a guitar. I slapped this music together. I like this music, genuinely, but it is a big sloppy mess. It's a demo. For the majority of my life, I wouldn't have allowed anyone to hear a demo. But demos are all I've got time for. I don't just mean music. I mean everything. It's demo or it's nothing. What changed? I changed. My relationship with things in the demo phase has changed. But this shot ended up being like my favorite capture for this entire year, I think. And I got it on my phone. That's wild. So I used to think, okay, I'll just start with a demo. Later I'll come back and finish this thing, whatever it is. But now I understand that time will never come. Or even if it does, I'll have lost interest anyway. It's always more fun to create something new. Yes, a tripod is making this much easier to zoom in, check focus before I shoot. But I hate the gross-looking sky here. The phone is really getting carried away with whatever HDR garbage or aggressive processing it's doing. So I decided not to shoot directly into the sun. I love the look of this lens. It really is the perfect middle ground between vintage and pinhole. So the goal is to spend as much of my energy creating as possible, not polishing, not rewriting, not reperforming music, not re-editing photos, video, audio. Again, this looks so cool. It's a photo of nothing. But everything I do is a demo, but that's all it will ever be. Doesn't mean I don't care, but I've released myself from the obligation of fixing things, perfecting things. I spend my time working on the next demo, not stuck polishing my last one. And again, I am not specifically talking about music anymore. This is a life choice. Yeah, my phone fell off the tripod, and that sucked. The lens just ripped right out of the threads on the phone case. I had more time today, but that pretty much sucked all the joy out of it for me. I wasn't able to bounce back after that. But I was happy to discover that no damage to my phone occurred. The case and the screen protector did their job. Also, there are no scratches from the lenses making contact with my native phone lenses. Good. I wondered about that. So I'll leave a link. It's not an affiliate link, it's just a link. Link.